Welcome to the lecture, guys. In this lecture, we are going to continue our discussion on P block. Now we are taking carbon family and the language will be English itself, guys. My name is Anmol Kumar. I am MTech in Aerospace Engineering from Indian Institute of Science and your instructor at IITPathshala.com, guys. You can contact me on these number. I am 24 into 7 available for you guys. This is my WhatsApp number. This is my call number. You can give examination on my website. Free examination is there. You can give anytime. Now, guys, it's recommended to watch the video till the end, otherwise you will be missing what can be asked in the exam itself, missing the important point, guys. So it's recommended to watch the video till the end itself. Before going into the lecture, guys, please like, share and subscribe my channel, and please hit the bell notification icon as well. Guys, please check out my other videos. Please check out my other videos on various topics like tricks, kinematics. Full lecture will be there. IIT JEE Advanced 2020 subject wise paper analysis, HC Verma solution and various other organic chemistry videos also. Please guys, check out those videos also. Before going into the lecture, grab a pen and paper, guys, and start taking the notes. Now guys, in this lecture we are going to study about the carbon family. As you can see on the screen, this is your carbon family. Okay, now let us start with the oxidation state itself. Okay, the most important topic of all. So carbon and silicon shows you an oxidation state of +4, while germanium, tin and lead shows oxidation state of +2 and +4. Why? Due to inert pair effect, guys. Then if we talk about the metallic character, then metallic character decreases down the group. Thus, you can say that carbon and silicon are non-metal, germanium is a metalloid, and tin and lead are metals itself. Regarding the most important thing, guys, in this family, which is the catenation property, you know that due to the smaller size and higher electronegativity of carbon atom, it has a property of self-linking to other carbon atoms, forming long chains. However, as we move down, the tendency for catenation decrease and it is of the following order: carbon the highest one, okay, it shows highest catenation property, then our silicon, then our germanium, whose catenation property is incomparable to that of tin itself, then last but not the least our lead itself, guys. Now if we move forward, then we are having two questions over here which you can answer very easily, guys, using the information which I have delivered you. Now let us move to carbon and its compound. Let us talk about the allotropy. So as you know that carbon exists in the large number of allotropic form. Okay, as you can see it on the screen itself, you are having a variety of allotropic forms of carbon. You can see on screen and you can note it down. Now we are concerned about the diamond and graphite only. Okay, so now in diamond and graphite, you know that diamond is the hardest one, nothing to tell about. Graphite is the softest one, but we are concerned about the hybridization itself. In diamond, carbon is sp3 hybridized and the arrangement is tetrahedral, whereas in graphite you can see over here the hybridization of carbon is sp2 hybridized, guys. Okay, this question are being directly asked in your exam itself. Okay, now these are the two most important points. The carbon-carbon bond length is maximum in diamond, having the value of 154 picometer. Here, each carbon of atom undergoes sp3 hybridization and linked to 4 other carbon atom by using hybridized orbital in tetrahedral fashion. It has rigid three-dimensional network of carbon atom. CC bond length within the layer of graphite is nothing but they are 141.5 picometer long, and in C60 fullerene, now guys let me tell you, fullerene is also an important form, so that's why I am mentioning the fullerene over here, okay, because it is directly being asked into the examination, as you will see in the subsequent slides. So C60, the CC bond length, the CC distance between single and double bond are 143.5 and 138.3 picometer respectively. Now you should be remembering that C60 is aromatic allotrope of carbon which contain 12 pentagons and 20 hexagon. You should be remembering this data. Okay, it is a fullerene having a shape like soccer ball and it's called Buckminster fullerene. Okay guys, now as I was telling you that these kind of questions are being directly asked into the examination, that's why I have mentioned the important notebooks over there. So you can have these two questions by yourself. Write it in the comment section which of the following options are correct, and I will certainly reply you. Now let us have the gravy part itself, guys, the chemical property. Okay, so water gas, as you can see on the screen, this H2 plus CO is called as water gas. Water gas is made by blowing air through red and white hot coke. So this is your coke. If you heat it up, it become red. Okay, if you further heat it up to very high temperature, it become white. Okay, so that's why you are having a red or white hot coke. So your carbon in presence of some water, and there is red or white hot coke, you are getting your water gas. Now all allotropes burn in oxygen to form carbon dioxide, as you can see on the screen itself. Now producer gas is made by blowing air through red hot coke, guys. Okay, so here you are having red hot coke, there is your air. Okay, then you are having carbon dioxide and nitrogen gas over here. Okay, you are adding carbon and you are having your producer gas, which is nothing but carbon monoxide and nitrogen gas over here. Okay guys, now let us move to the next slide. Carbon as a reducing agent. Okay, so for those who haven't done the redox reaction or redox, I have mentioned the reaction over here also. Okay, so now carbon as a reducing agent. So if you don't know about the reducing agent, then reducing agent is an element or an compound that donates or that loses an electron to an electron recipient, okay, which is your oxidizing agent in a redox chemical reaction, guys. So here is your carbon, there is your concentrated H2SO4, you are heating them up and you are having carbon dioxide, SO2 and H2O. Okay guys, now this is the most important reaction. Carbon with dilute but hot HNO3, you are having artificial tannin, which is brown. Okay, so it is being directly asked, guys, directly asked in the examination. Now carbon as oxygen acceptor, as you can see on the screen, if you are reacting your carbon, if you are reacting your carbon with these guys which are having oxygen, then it is readily accepting oxygen, yielding carbon monoxide over here, and these guys are losing oxygens over here. That you should be remembering, guys. Okay, these are the factual, these are fact based, so you have to remember all these kind of reactions for your examination. As you can see that all the question directly being asked on the basis of memory, guys, itself. Okay, this is a memory based question, this is a memory based question, nothing can we can change in these kind of question, nothing analytical we can think in these kind of question, or everything should be memory based itself, guys. Okay, now let us have the more important part, reaction of this carbon monoxide, then carbon dioxide and H2CO3, okay, with water and other things like air, alkalis, non-metal, metal, NH3, because these are directly being asked in your examination, guys. Okay, so as you know that carbon monoxide, it is a poisonous gas, colorless, odorless, neutral and quite reactive, whereas your carbon dioxide, it's colorless, it's odorless, but it's acidic. Now H2CO3 is a weak diabasic acid, guys. Okay, here are the structure, you can see them. Okay, now if we react our carbon monoxide with H2O, if we react carbon monoxide with H2O, it's sparingly soluble in H2O, guys. Okay, now we are having a carbon dioxide along with H2 gas over here. If we react our carbon dioxide with H2O, then it dissolves and slightly hydrated to form H2CO3, guys. Okay, it's slightly hydrated to form H2CO3. Okay, now regarding this H2CO3, if we react H2CO3 with H2O, then it has never been isolated from the aqueous solution, guys. Okay, now if we react our carbon monoxide with air, then you are having carbon dioxide. Okay, it burns with a blue flame, other two guys won't react. Now if you are taking alkalis, then carbon monoxide readily form sodium formate, there is your alkali NaOH over here, guys. Okay, the other guys carbon dioxide, when react with lime water, then you are getting a white precipitate, which is a test for carbon dioxide itself. Okay, CaCO3, the precipitate. Okay, now this CaCO3, when kept in excess carbon dioxide, then you are getting a soluble compound over here, guys, and the other guy, H2CO3, H2CO3 doesn't react with alkalis either. Okay, you can check out the other reaction. I don't have to recite all the reactions over here, they are fact based and you can just mug them up. Okay, we'll move to the next more important part of the slide itself, which is preparation of CO, which is directly being asked into the examination, this reaction over here. So if you want to prepare your CO in laboratory, okay, then what you will be do, you will be means you will be dehydrating formic acid over here, okay, in the presence of concentrated H2SO4. So you will be having your CO along with H2O. Now you can do it with oxalic acid also. You just add your H2SO4 over here and you will be having your beloved CO over here. Okay, now what you can do, you can check out these other two reactions in which I have mentioned that if you have carbon, then if you react it by oxide of heavy metal, you will be having a carbon monoxide gas which will escape, okay, at the end, and you will be having certainly a metal over here. Okay, now if you are having potassium ferrocyanide in the presence of concentrated H2SO4 and some water, and you are heating it up, you are applying energy, you are giving it a heat, okay, then again you are getting a carbon monoxide here, guys. Okay, you are again getting a carbon monoxide as an escaping gas. Now you have to remember this note, this is a very important note, the dilute H2SO4 is not used. Why? Because it gives extremely poisonous HCN. It gives extremely poisonous HCN, guys. Now let us have the preparation of CO2. Now why I am reciting all these reaction in front of you guys, because these reaction, this carbon monoxide, this carbon dioxide, the preparation and all are very important and are being directly asked into the examination. So if you guys are taking note, well and well, good, okay, it's good. If you are not taking note, guys, you are missing the gravy part of the chapter itself. Okay, now the main industrial source is as a byproduct from the manufacture of hydrogen for making of ammonia, guys. Okay, so you are having carbon monoxide reacted with H2O, you'll be having a CO2 and a H2O. Now this reaction can also go backward in the direction. Okay, now if you are having methane reacted with water, you'll be having carbon dioxide and H2 gas escaping. Okay, guys, now it is recovered from alcoholic fermentation. Now you are having a glucose over here, add yeast in that and make anaerobic conditions over there. Okay, you will be having your carbon dioxide. Okay, there will be some bubbles escaping from the system itself, which is nothing but your carbon dioxide. Again, it is obtained by heating the carbonates. You are having the carbonates over here, just heat them up, you will be having your carbon dioxide, guys. Okay, you will be having a your carbon dioxide. Sorry, there is a carbon dioxide over here. Now in laboratory, it is prepared by the action of dilute acid on the carbonates itself. So you are having a calcium carbonate over here. Okay, dilute HCl is there and you are having a carbon dioxide gas escaping from your system over here. You have to remember all these reactions, guys. Let us talk about silicon, guys, now. So now we are having our silicon, then silicon carbide and silica. So silicon, it's the second most abundant element, okay, and it's widely present as SiO2, okay, as our silica. It's crystalline, very hard and inert. It's amorphous, that it is not having a definite shape. It's brownish powder and it's more reactive. Now if we talk about silicon carbide, the properties are as follow, that it is colorless, but if you are finding it to be in any color like yellow, green or blue, then it will be due to the traces of ferrous in it. Okay, it's extremely hard and inert. The structure is similar to that of diamond and it's used as abrasive. It is amorphous, brownish and powdered, more reactive, guys. Silica, it's widely found as sand, quartz or flint, high melting point and it's acidic in nature. Now if we talk about their reaction, first silicon, it is unaffected in the ordinary condition, but if you are providing enough heat, then it will react to form silica. There will be an escaping H2 gas over there. Now if you are having silicon in amorphous form and you are reacting it with oxygen providing a heat, then it will form silica. okay, and it will burn brilliantly. Okay, now if you are having silicon as a crystalline form in the presence of oxygen and you are providing enough heat, then there will be no effect. It is unaffected by dilute acid but amorphous form dissolved in the mixture of HNO3 and HCl, while crystalline form dissolved in HNO3 plus HF. Silicon carbide is unaffected with water, unaffected by air, and unaffected by all the acid except phosphoric acid. That you should remember. Okay, now silica, it reacts with water to form silicic acid. It is unaffected with air and unaffected being acidic oxide. Okay, now HF, when react with your silica, it yields SiF4 and H2O. Now guys, SiF4, this SiF4, when it comes in contact with a drop of water, it forms silicic acid. It forms silicic acid. Okay, and you can see it floating as a white solid. So this is a test for silicates, guys. Okay, I have mentioned the reaction over here. Okay, now we'll move to the next slide. So guys, I've mentioned every reaction over here. You can pause the slide and just note down all these reaction and can learn various new things from these reaction. I don't have to recite every information for you guys because there that's a factual based information which you have to learn. Okay, I will be giving you the most important gist from the chapter itself. Now we'll move to the next slide, which is silicons. That's the most important one. Okay, so silicons are group of organo silicon polymers. Okay, polymers means there will be a long running chain. There will be a long running chains, just like as your iron chain you have seen in your daily life, which contain SiO-Si linkages. We'll frequently see them. Okay, so first thing is the preparation. Okay, that's the most important guy. Silicons are formed by hydrolysis of alkyl or aryl substituted chlorosilanes, which formed by the reaction of Grignard reagent and silicon tetrachloride, as I mentioned over here, and their substituent polymerization. So you are having a silicon tetrachloride, add Grignard reagent to it, and you will be having your chlorosilicanes, guys. Now after you have got your chlorosilicanes, this one is your chlorosilicane, this one is your chlorosilicane, this one is your chlorosilicane, what you can do, pick one of them. Okay, now this reaction is the formation of cross-linked silicons, which is the most important one. So you have picked one of them, which is RSiCl3. You have added water, then you'll be having this fellow over here. So you are getting rid of these Cl. Okay, you are getting rid of these Cls over here. There were 3 Cls. Instead of these 3 Cls, you are getting OH into the place of Cls. Then you are removing water. Okay, after the removal of water, you are having a cross-linked silicon structure ongoing. Okay, you are having a cross-linked silicon structures ongoing, as you can see on the screen. Okay guys, now you have picked R2SiCl2. Okay, in the presence of water, you are having dialkyl silendiol. You are removing water molecule from it and you are having a linear thermoplastic polymer. So why I am saying a polymer? Because it's a long running chain. Okay, it can be very long. So that's the most important reaction. Okay, now guys, let us talk about the formation of dimer, in which you are having R3SiCl, 3 alkyl groups there are. Okay, in the presence of water, you are having these as your products. Now when you get these products, note fact to be noted that these are volatile. There will be a removal of water molecule from them. So as you can see on screen that there will be a removal of water molecule and you are left with this compound only, which cannot further polymerize, as we have seen in the other two guys. There was a polymer forming and there were a cross linking silicons going over there, but here you can see it cannot further polymerize. Okay, now these are the most important properties which you should be remembering, that R3SiCl is a chain stopping unit. It's a chain stopping unit and reduces polymer size as it blocks the end of the chain. while RSiCl3 is used to produce new cross links and it increases the polymerization. Okay, so comparison is being asked into the examination directly. They can ask you that in among both of them, which is a good, which increases your polymerization. So your answer should be this one. Okay, silicons are electrical insulator. They are water repellent, strong and inert. The boiling point and viscosity increases with the increase in the chain length. Okay, silicons are stable toward heat, hence they can use be as an electrical insulator. The order of stability varies with the R alkyl group you are attaching. Okay, which is as follow. That's your phenyl, that's your methyl, that's your ethyl, that's your propyl. So it's having three carbons. Okay, CH3, CH2 and CH2, and then there you are having a unbonded single bond over here, so it can form bond from this side. In ethyl you are having two carbons, same in the fashion. There is only, you can say that it is methyl and this is your phenyl. Being water repellent, they are used for treating glassware and fabrics. They are also used as hydraulic fluid and silicone rubbers. Now let us talk about the silicates. Silicates are derivative of silicic and SiOH4 or H2SiO4 guys. They have basic tetrahedral unit SiO4 4 negative and SiO bond may be considered 50% covalent and 50% ionic. That is the most important point. You will see that they are being, means they are asking this question at various point of time in your worksheets. You can see these kind of question, and in your previous year examination also from the NEET itself you can see this kind of question also. Okay, suggested by a difference of 1.7 in electron negativities. Now preparation, the most important thing guys. So silicates can be prepared by fusing an alkali metal carbonate with sand in electric furnace at about 1400 °C. Okay, as you can see, you can note down the following reaction because it's being more important and they can ask you this reaction in the examination guys. Now point to be noted that silica occur in the nature in several amorphous and crystalline form. Okay, this word I cannot even pronounce that word, is amorphous form of silica. Quartz, trimodite and cristobalite are crystalline form of silica. Sorry, I cannot pronounce this word, uh, hard to pronounce. Okay, so this is the most important note you can note down, and you will frequently see that question from this note will be coming. Now let us talk about the classification of silicate minerals. So first is your orthosilicates. In orthosilicate, these silicates contain single discrete unit of SiO4 4 negative tetrahedral, as you can see on the screen itself. Now the question is being asked that find the number of shared oxygen atoms among between them. Okay, so here you can see from the diagram itself the answer is 0. Okay, now if you move to the pyrosilicates guys, if you move to the pyrosilicates, you can see that they contain two SiO4 negative which are joined along a corner containing the oxygen atom. So how many shared oxygen are there? One only, as you can see from the diagram itself. There is one shared oxygen. So readily being asked in the examination directly that find the number of shared oxygen or give us the number of shared oxygen, or pyrosilicates contain dash number of shared oxygen atom, or which of the following contain at least one, or at most one, sorry, at most one shared oxygen atom among both of them. Okay, now let us talk about the cyclic structure guys. In this what they are asking from you guys is again the shared oxygen atom. As you can see in this guy and in this guy, in this guy and in this guy, you can see that only two oxygen are being shared. For this guy over here, let us name it as first unit, only two oxygen atom it is sharing with these two guys over here. Again this guy over here is sharing one oxygen over here, and again it will be sharing certainly this oxygen with another guy over here. So here you can see that there are two oxygens being shared among each of them. Okay, that you should be remembering. Then there is your chain silicate structure. There is your chain silicate structure. Again in this also two oxygen atoms are being shared. Okay, two oxygen atoms are being shared by each tetrahedral anions of the chain silicate. Okay, now if you take the two-dimensional silicate sheet of silicate, then in such sheet three oxygen atom of each tetrahedral are shared. Okay, three oxygen atom, as you can see it on screen, one, then two, and then this three third will be also will be shared. Okay, as you can see it on this one, then two, and then three in this unit. Let us have this unit as well. Okay, so let us have this unit, and you can see that first oxygen, second oxygen, and third oxygen, all the oxygens are being shared. So number of shared oxygens are 3 in this case. Now three-dimensional sheet silicate, the silicate involve all four oxygen atom in the sharing. Okay, so for three-dimensional, all four oxygen atom will be in the sharing itself. Okay, now guys, let us move forward to the tin and its compound. Okay, so tin is a white, lustrous, soft and malleable metal, as you have seen. Okay, it's you can see it in at various places. Okay, so it produces a cracking sound called tinnery whenever it is bent. So if you are having ghee canisters, okay, so most of the houses are having ghee canisters. So those ghee canisters are made up of tin itself. Okay, ghee in which ghee comes. Okay, so those canisters are made up of tin itself, and you will be having the tinnery sounds. Okay, when you hit that, there will be a wobbly kind of sound, you the cracking kind of sound. Okay, or you can call it as tinnery kind of sound. Okay, so that's your tin, guys, the ghee canister. Now the properties are that tin reacts with steam to give you SnO2 and an H2 gas. Then it dissolves in dilute HNO3 to form the following compound. Okay, I have given you the reaction over here. It slowly attacks by the cold alkali and rapidly by the hot alkali. That's the most important point. Okay, so if in a reaction they says that which of the following reaction proceed fastly, then you can say that okay, the reaction which is having a hot alkali will proceed fastly than that of the cold alkali in the matter of tin itself. Okay, now tin is used in tin plating, okay, and making alloy like bronze, which is contains 75% copper and 25% tin, and solder, which contains 67% of tin and 33% of your lead. Okay guys, now this is the most important part which I was telling you, that let us draw our attention toward this sheet of silicate. Okay, this box you can note it down because I have already discussed this point, but mentioning this note over here was the utmost importance for me. You can note it down, and we'll move to the next slide, which contains the question itself. So from the previous knowledge you can do both of the question. Okay, you can use the note box or you can use the slides itself. Okay, just rewind your lecture and have the knowledge itself and hit the correct option. Tell it to me which of the following options are correct. I won't be solving here. Okay, so these are memory based questions, you guys can do it easy. Now let us talk about Sn2 plus Sn4 plus. As I was telling you that tin ion exists in the two following state, plus 2 and plus 4. Okay, in which plus 4 is being more stable. So any of its compound, if you are going, means question will be there something like, if you have to compare two compounds of tin, okay, one will be in plus 2 stage and one will be in plus 4, so which of the following will be more stable? So the guy with plus 4 will be more stable. Okay, that you have to remember. Question will be certainly asked from this part itself. Now SnO2 is known as your cassiterite, and it is found as a mineral in nature. The other oxide SnO, it is less stable, and it is obtained by heating of stannous oxalate. As you have you can see on the screens, this is your stannous oxalate. You are heating it up, you are having your SnO. Okay, now why this oxide is less stable? As you can see it on the screen itself, that the oxidation state it is exhibiting is plus 2 itself. So tin is happy with plus 4, but now it is exhibiting plus 2 over here. Okay, so that you should be remembering. Now SNO as SNO2 are both amphoteric, but your SNO is slightly more basic than your SNO2 and is a good reducing agent too. Okay, from the previous information itself you can refer this previous information and you can have an idea why that SNO is more or is a good reducing agent. Okay, I mentioned the reactions over here. Now among the halides, the stannous chloride SnCl2 and stannic chloride SnCl4 are most important. As you can see over here, it is exhibiting a +4 oxidation state over here and it is exhibiting a +2 oxidation state over here. So you can say that SnCl2 rather than it is means it can rather than it want to have in this oxidation state, it wants to readily form SnCl4. Okay, it want to be forming SnCl4 instead of being as SnCl2 because of showing a +4 oxidation state over here. Okay, so SnCl2 exists as dihydrated which undergo hydrolysis on heating. As you can see it on the screen, the anhydrous salt SnCl2 is obtained by reaction of tin with calculated quantity of HgCl2. Excess of HgCl2 result in the formation of stannic chloride, as I was telling you only that tin when gets the opportunity it readily form SnCl4 instead of SnCl2. Okay, because it's happy in this stage, it's having an oxidation state of +4, instead here it is having an oxidation state of +2. Okay, so that's why in the excess of HgCl2 it readily form this one. To form this one you should limit your HgCl2 concentration itself. Okay, the reaction I have given as follow. Now most of the reaction of SnCl2 are due to its reducing character itself. It reduces MnO4 minus to Mn2 plus and Cr2O7 to negative to Cr3 plus, and itself it get oxidized to Sn4 plus because of the greater stability it possess in this oxidation state. Okay, now its compound, lead and its compound, you can read it by yourself. I will be reciting for you guys that lead is a bluish gray soft metal which can be cut with a knife and extremely poisonous. Lead often appear more unreactive than expected from its standard electrode potential. The unreactiveness is due to the surface coating of basic carbonate. Okay, that's the most important point. Okay, which form over lead when exposed to air or moisture. So you can say that lead is unaffected by water. Okay, so this point over here, surface coating of basic carbonate, is the most important point among all these points. Now lead is used in making of lead chamber for H2SO4 plant and certain alloys like solder, SnPb, this alloy. Okay, lead is amphoteric, dissolves in both acid and hot alkalis. As I've told you that for cold alkalis it takes time, but for hot it readily reacts, similar to that of Sn, tin itself. In alkali it form plumbates like as follow. However, lead does not dissolve in concentrated HCl because, as I've told you, that it forms the surface coating PbCl2, okay, which prevents its further reaction. Now if you talk about the oxide, leads exhibit as follow: +2 and +4, with +2 being more stable. In the tin you were seeing that +4 was being more stable, but in the lead you are seeing that +2 is being more stable. Why? Inert pair effect, guys. Again, inert pair effect is everything over here, which increases the stability of +2 state while going down the group. Okay, oxide is formed as follow. You can see it on the screen itself that lead when react with oxygen in the presence of heat, PbO, litharge, which is yellow in color. Then if you heat it further you will be having a red lead. If you heat it further in the presence of oxygen you will be having a brown lead. Okay, now PbO and PbO2 both are amphoteric, both dissolve in acid and base. As I've told you that they are amphoteric, they dissolve in acid and base both. The reactions are as follow: Pb3O4, or you may say red lead, may represented by 2PbO or PbO2 and is used in paint to prevent the rusting of iron and steel itself. Now, litharage. Litharage is commercially important and is used in large amount to make your lead glass. PbO2 is used as a strong oxidizing agent and produces in lead storage batteries. Now, if we talk about the chlorides of lead, chlorides are prepared by passing lead through current of chlorine gases. Okay, as you can see it on the screen, lead, chlorine gas, and you'll be having PbCl2. Now, if you are having excess of Cl over here, you can have PbCl4. Now, dissolving Pb2 plus salt, which is as follow in HCl, produces PbCl2. Okay, now you can see over here that lead is in the +2 oxidation state, it is happy, so it readily form PbCl2. PbCl4 is less stable because here the oxidation state is +4. Okay, and it decomposes on heating at room temperature and it liberate Cl2. So as I was telling you, that question is readily being asked in PbCl2 versus PbCl4 stability. So PbCl4 being more stable being less stable than that of PbCl2. Why? Because Pb loves to exhibit in +2 oxidation state. So I can say that instead of having or instead of getting into PbCl4, it try to form PbCl2 itself. Okay, so here it is being decomposed on heating and it form PbCl2, readily losing Cl2. Now, tetraethyl lead. Okay, as you can see it on the screen, it is produced in large amount and used as an anti-knock additive to increase the octane number of the petrol. Okay, the commercial preparation uses sodium or lead alloy as follows. So you are having your sodium or lead alloy, then your ethyl chloride, you will be having the products. Okay, so once it's produced in larger tonnage than any other organometallic compound, but the production is declining rapidly as a result of legislation requiring that new cars most run on lead free petrol. So that's the most important part, because lead, as I told you, is a poisonous. Lead is poisonous. Okay, it's poison. Okay, lead is poison, so that's why. So guys, if you love my lecture, like my lecture, please give it a thumbs up. I have give you enough information which can be directly asked in your examination itself, and I have showed you that the question were taken from the previous year itself, and from the notes itself they were asking the question, the relevant question itself. So please watch the full lecture, make the notes. Everything is memory based only, nothing will come out from the syllabus itself. Okay, you can have my notes, or if you want to have the notes, you can have the free classes which I am giving for the physics itself. You can contact me on the prescribed numbers over here. You can call me or you can WhatsApp me that, sir, I want to have the free classes of physics, and along with that I will be giving you the relevant notes of other subjects also, which is your chemistry and physics. So guys, we'll meet you in the next lecture. Until then, please check out my other videos, don't forget about them. Until then, goodbye guys, thank you.